Today, I'll guide you through 4 sexual sins that many Christian couples struggle with, and the 4th is the gravest of all. If you've been wondering how certain practices might be affecting your relationship and spiritual life, this video is for you. Let's delve into these common mistakes together and discover how to avoid them, strengthening your marriage and drawing closer to God. Stay tuned till the end to grasp how to improve your bond and live by divine principles. It's astonishing how many still face barriers in this area, directly impacting the couple's life. Once, a pastor shared a peculiar story with me. A church member called him in despair, seeking a deliverance prayer for his wife, suspecting she was possessed by a seductive spirit. The pastor, trying to grasp the situation, learned that the man was troubled by his wife's sensual appearance in revealing clothing. Initially, I chuckled at the scenario, but I soon realized the gravity of how religiosity can prevent people from receiving God's blessings. Many adopt an overly rigid stance, as if little is permissible in marriage, yet in solitude, some become addicted to pornography or even commit adultery. We must be honest, brothers and sisters. Sex is pervasive, in media, online, and even in casual conversations among friends. The topic inevitably arises among Christians too, but we follow a different set of guidelines. Especially concerning sex outside of marriage, when I first joined the church during my conversion year, I learned that premarital sex is a sin. These lessons led me to wait until marriage, and I married as a virgin, as did my wife. I thank God for that choice, but I understand that not everyone can wait until marriage to engage in sexual relations. This doesn't alter what God's word says. If you strive to obey the Lord, you'll surely reap good fruits, and even if you falter, there's hope. God's promise is clear. The blood of Jesus cleanses us from all sin. Many believe that after marriage, anything goes, that they can do as they please. However, I'll show you that the Bible outlines at least 4 types of sex that are forbidden. It's crucial to clarify: enjoying pleasure and intimacy with your spouse is not a sin. Unfortunately, many churches treat this topic as a taboo, preaching in a way that makes couples feel guilty even when they're under God's blessing. Some wonder, what would Jesus do in my place? Since Jesus didn't marry or have sexual relations, they might mistakenly view sex as impure. The truth is, Jesus remained celibate because he saw sex as part of marriage and his mission was to die on the cross. We should base our actions on what Jesus taught, not just what he did. His teachings, not his experiences, are what truly matter. In the first book of the Bible, Genesis, we see that God created men and women as sexual beings, and there's no sin in that. God designed us for relationship and reproduction. When a man and a woman unite, they become one flesh. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the Apostle Paul speaks extensively about marriage and sexuality. The Bible offers valuable guidance. Paul teaches that a married man should not only focus on spiritual activities but also attend to his wife's needs. He advises couples not to deprive each other of sexual relations for extended periods, except perhaps during a time of fasting, and even then, such abstinence should not linger. This is because when sex is halted for too long, couples may become more susceptible to temptations, and the devil can exploit this weakness, causing trouble. Lack of intimacy can lead to intense longing and greater vulnerability to act on instinct. I'm not suggesting we should follow our urges recklessly, but many make wrong choices in the heat of the moment and later deeply regret them. Before discussing the 4 forbidden types of sex within marriage, it's essential to reflect on adultery. We've all heard the romantic notion that true love never betrays. However, the reality can be starkly different. Infidelity rates are rising, even within churches, bringing suffering and destruction to many families. This is why we must consider the sin of betrayal. It's vital to understand that no matter how well-intentioned we are, we're all fallible and sinful. Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 26 verse 41, "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." We are continually enticed by the world's temptations and must remain vigilant against them. Love alone isn't enough to prevent betrayal. There's a common misconception that if you love your spouse, you'll never feel attraction to others. However, the Bible reminds us that our flesh is weak, and if we don't control our thoughts and desires, we may succumb to temptation. It's crucial to be aware and watchful to protect our relationship. James chapter 1 verse 14-15 tells us that each person is tempted by their own desires, which lead them astray and entrap them. Once these desires take root, they give birth to sin, and sin leads to death. While in our human bodies, it's natural to feel attraction to others, a smile, an attractive physique, an engaging voice, a captivating gaze, a striking personality. Moreover, media and culture bombard us with messages that encourage infidelity, extramarital sex, and the objectification of women, while idealizing the seductive man. With easy access to pornography and a lack of satisfaction within marriage, it's no wonder many succumb to betrayal, even while loving their partners. However, 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8 shares a vital warning: be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Satan is always lurking, ready to attack those who do not seek God and indulge in worldly pleasures. I share this so we can face reality without illusions. Whether you're a husband or wife, recognize your humanity and propensity for error. Your flesh may crave what's forbidden, and if you're not careful, you could fall into the trap of betrayal. But does this mean everyone is doomed to infidelity? Absolutely not. Here's the most crucial lesson. Those who love God and their spouse must shun evil and not rely solely on their own strength. If you're facing temptations, be extremely cautious and don't delude yourself into thinking you're strong enough. The Bible teaches that, let anyone who thinks that they stand take heed lest they fall. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 12. Don't face temptation alone. Flee from it, communicate more with your partner, resolve issues instead of ignoring them, and above all, fear God. Many confuse fearing God with being afraid, but it's actually about respect and reverence. It means acknowledging that God disapproves of sin and disciplines those who stray from His path. If you follow the advice I'm sharing, you'll prevent betrayal from entering your life. There's a proverb in Proverbs chapter 28 verse 14 that says, "Happy is the one who fears the Lord always, but whoever hardens their heart will fall into calamity." Therefore, to live a blessed, peaceful, and protected life, maintain that reverence for the Lord and obey His word. Now, let's discuss the 4 types of sex the Bible considers prohibited. The first is partner swapping. It may sound unusual, but this practice is more prevalent than we think. Couples gather and exchange partners, engaging in relations with each other's spouses. Some believe this strengthens their relationship by fostering more trust and freedom. However, it's adultery, one of the most displeasing sins to God. Leviticus chapter 18 verse 20 states, "Do not have sexual relations with a man's wife. That would defile you." This sin inflicts deep wounds on the soul and destroys trust and respect in marriage, so it's best to avoid it. The second forbidden act is a threesome, involving a third person with both partners' consent. Some try to justify this by mentioning Jacob, who was married to 2 sisters, Leah and Rachel. Yet, the Bible never indicates that he was intimate with both simultaneously. Although polygamy was permitted in those times, it wasn't God's ideal. God's perfect intention for marriage has always been clear: one man and one woman united in a covenant of love and fidelity. This truth is reaffirmed by Jesus in Matthew chapter 19, saying, "Haven't you read that from the beginning the Creator made them male and female and said, 'For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.' So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." The third sin is abuse. An essential aspect God makes clear is what should not be part of marital intimacy: abuse. We often think of abuse as physical violence, but it can also occur when one spouse forces the other into relations without consent. Some misuse 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 4, which says, "The wife does not have authority over her own body but yields it to her husband." In the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body but yields it to his wife. The true meaning is that we should care for our spouse's well-being, not just seek our own pleasure. The fourth sin is pornography. Though not a direct sexual act, pornography often leads to behaviors that displease God. Some Christians believe that watching pornographic films can disrupt a relationship, and indeed, this practice can be extremely hazardous. The Bible instructs us to keep our marital bed pure. Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4 states, "Marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the immoral and adulterous." You might wonder about practices like oral sex or using accessories in private. While the Bible doesn't directly address these topics, what's most important is that both spouses feel comfortable and fully agree. If something doesn't seem right to either partner, it's best to refrain. The key is always to honor God and respect your partner. The Bible doesn't cover every detail of life because if it did, it would be an enormous book. When something isn't explicitly forbidden by God, we need to discern whether it's permitted and healthy for the relationship. 1 John chapter 3 verse 21-22 reminds us, "Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from Him anything we ask, because we keep His commands and do what pleases Him." Regarding specific practices like anal sex, it's important to remember that our bodies weren't designed for that, and doctors often warn about the health risks involved. It's essential to understand that sex within marriage isn't sinful, impure, or merely for reproduction. God created intimacy so that husband and wife could enjoy pleasure and strengthen their emotional and spiritual connection. To be truly absolved, avoid practices that displease God and ground your relationship in His principles and love. If both align with these truths, they'll enjoy a happier and more intimate marriage, which will be a great blessing in their lives. So, what do you think about these 4 sins, and what impact might they have on a marriage? Has any of them affected your life or relationship? Remember, acknowledging and reflecting on these errors is the first step toward fortifying your marriage and spiritual life. Have you considered how small changes can make a big difference? What can you do today to align your relationship with God's principles and live a fuller, more accomplished life? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this content helpful, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with others who might benefit. May God bless you and your marriage. Stay tuned for the next video.